Welcome to the Rap Soul Podcast, where we dive deep into the world of music that moves our hearts and gets our feet tapping. This is the intersection of rap and soul music from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. We appreciate you for listening. Share this podcast with a friend or family member who loves music as much as you do. The podcast is hosted by 12 Kyle. Next up, the Rap Soul Podcast.
There are people who feel like at some point that Outkast will perform again as a duo, as a group, Dre and Big Boy. The thought process is that maybe they may not make another album, but they would do another tour at some point. I don't necessarily know if that's going to happen, but if it does, I'm there. I am there. Count me in. I'm willing to pay a small fortune to see that. And I know tickets will be through the roof, especially here, but I got to see my guys. Again, there are a lot of people that you don't necessarily want to pay to see twice. Dre and Big Boy on a stage together again, doing the hits and the classics. Count me in. Welcome to another edition of the Rap Soul Podcast. I am your boy 12 Kyle. I want to thank you all for tuning in as you do each and every week. Again, this is the Rap Soul Podcast. This is the intersection where we have discussions about music and artists from the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s when it comes to rap, hip hop, soul, and R&B. Simply put, folks, it's the best music podcast that you have never heard. That is, until right now. Shout out to those of you who are watching on YouTube. Man, check this out. Okay. The other day I was scrolling on Threads. I don't really spend a lot of time on social media these days, but I happened to be scrolling on Threads and I came across a thread that my homegirl Sharon, shout out to Sharon. You guys remember her. She was on this episode where we talked about D'Angelo earlier this calendar year. And there was a trend going on and you had to kind of respond to the trend. And it was called, I want to make sure I get this right, introduce yourself with 10 artists you've seen perform live. And so Sharon had to drop her 10. And it got me to thinking, like, who have I seen live? And I've seen quite a few artists perform live. There are two artists that I did not see perform live, and one of which I still kick myself to this day. And one is Michael Jackson. Never got a chance to see Michael perform live. I think I'm probably more intrigued by the mystery of what a Michael Jackson concert would have looked and felt like. I've seen video and people, you really can't compare yourself or any other artist to Michael Jackson when it comes to performing, if we're being honest, because Michael Jackson literally would stand on stage and not move and not utter a word, and people would pass out. They would pass out as if they had seen the second coming of Jesus Christ. And I'm not comparing Mike to Jesus, but you get the point. There's no artist today that's going to step on the stage and not say anything or dance or utter a word and stand there for 3 minutes amongst a roaring crowd and you pass out. And so, I mean, on so many other levels, nobody compares to Mike. So I wish that I had gotten the opportunity to see him perform live. I've seen shows on TV. I've seen documentary footage. I would have liked to have been in an audience to see Mike do his thing. The other's Prince, and I've spoken about this on a couple of different episodes, but Prince is by far my favorite artist in a musical genre. And I had the opportunity to see him perform here in Atlanta where I live. And his last performance was here in Atlanta. I didn't go to the concert, though. I didn't have tickets, and I found out about it late. I mean, I probably could have bought a ticket off the street, but what I told myself was I had just seen Rakim the week before, which was my first time seeing Rakim perform, and Rakim was out of this world. And I told myself, oh, I'll catch Prince next time. And I really thought that I was going to catch Prince next time. And Prince, it was what was the name of the show? It was piano, a man and I think it was a man and a piano was a microphone and a piano, something to that. That was the theme of the concert. And it was just Prince. There was no cell phone footage or anything like that. You couldn't take your cell phones in. And he just performed his songs, and it was just him and a piano, no band, no nothing. And I would have loved to have seen that. That I think that show was on a Wednesday. Prince leaves Atlanta, has a medical emergency in the air, has to land somewhere in Nebraska. They get tended to. And then that Monday, I think, we got word that someone had passed away on Prince's property. And I said it before and I'll say it again. It never crossed my mind that when they said they found a body in an elevator on Prince's property, I never thought for once it could have been Prince. Because in my mind, Prince wasn't ever going to die. At least not like that. And so I still kind of kick myself for not seeing Prince, because I don't necessarily know that I had the opportunity to see Mike. I know I could have probably paid some money to see Prince that night, and I didn't. And as a fan, I still kind of kick myself for that. But when it comes to 10 artists that I've seen live, I think I've got a pretty good list. So what I wanted to do is come on this episode and share my list and a few notes about, those particular artists. And these are no particular order, starting off with number one right here in the ATL, Outkast, Dre and Big Boy. I want to say it was the Brown Sugar Tour, I think. I remember it was at the Fox Theater downtown in Atlanta on Peachtree Street. And it was my first time seeing Cast. And obviously they're one of my favorite rap groups of all time. I'm such a huge fan. I just remember going to that concert and they put on a show. If you've never seen Outkast perform, you missed a treat, because Outkast's shows, they're so interactive and the music is so dope and it's so compact that when their show is over, you almost feel like you perform, because you're singing every song, rapping every verse, you're doing all the dances, any and everything that comes with an Outkast show. It's so much energy. So yeah, Outkast, again, these are in no particular order, but Outkast definitely comes in on this list. And what's interesting is there are people who feel like at some point that Outkast will perform again as a duo, as a group, Dre and Big Boy. The thought process is that maybe they may not make another album, but they would do another tour at some point. I don't necessarily know if that's going to happen, but if it does, I'm there. I'm there. I am there. Count me in. I'm willing to pay a small fortune to see that. And I know tickets will be through the roof, especially here, but I got to see my guys again. And there are a lot of people that you don't necessarily want to pay to see twice, but Dre and Big Boy on a stage together again, doing the hits and the classics, count me in. Again, I don't think that they're ever going to make another album again, but that's just my personal opinion. But if Dre and Big Boy were to announce a tour or a performance anywhere near Atlanta or someplace close by, or even if they did a show in LA, I'm there. Number two, the other artist that was on that particular tour, the aforementioned D'Angelo. It was a Brown Sugar tour. Again, fabulous Fox Theater, downtown ATL. D'Angelo's show was crazy because Voodoo wasn't out yet. And this was just on the strength of the Brown Sugar album. And I remember when he did the smash hit Shit Damn Motherfucker. And the song goes from the melody that you hear to a rock song. And he ends up smashing guitars. I think he set a guitar on fire, a la Jimi Hendrix. Crazy performance. I mean, like between Outkast and D'Angelo that night, I lost my voice. I remember that distinctly. When we left the Fox Theater, my voice was gone. I could barely talk. Incredible show. Number 3, none other than the late great Dwight Myers, aka Heavy D. Now, Heavy D is interesting because Heavy D was the first concert that I'd ever been to. I was in the 8th grade, and Heavy D performed in my hometown of Florence, South Carolina, at Wilson High School. I wasn't even a student at Wilson. I was going to be at Wilson the upcoming year. But Heavy D came to Florence, and I remember he was in a limousine, and like that was a big thing that Heavy D was riding through North Florence in a limousine. And I think it was on the strength of the first album, Living Large. And other than Mr. Big Stuff, I think he may have performed 2 other songs. I can't remember the songs, but it wasn't like, he did a 4-hour concert. But it's just the fact that Heavy D was in our hometown. It was magical. And I've always been a fan of Heavy D, still a fan to this day. Heavy D is one of the few rap artists from that particular era that your mama liked, your granny liked, and Heavy didn't curse. And he was somebody who thoroughly appeared to enjoy performing. A big guy that could move, and the ladies, swooned over him. Shout out to the late great Heavy D. Number 4, arguably one of the greatest MCs of all time. That would be none other than my man Nas. I've seen Nas a couple of times. I think the last time I saw Nas was when he was on tour with Wu-Tang. Nas puts on a really, really dope show. He doesn't have a whole bunch of dancers and everything, so it's just him back and forth across the stage. But his music is so dope that you're going to rap along. And Nas he's always going to deliver. And I thoroughly enjoyed his show. I didn't really know what to expect going into both shows. And he had a lot of pyrotechnics and stuff like that going on in the background. I'd go see Nas again tomorrow. No doubt about it. Next up, number 5, The Foreign Exchange. Man, shout out to Fonte and Nicolay. I've seen The Foreign Exchange a couple of times. And the thing that I love about them is when they hit the stage, from the first note, the energy is at 10. And the energy doesn't drop down at all. So like, you can't come to a Foreign Exchange concert and be sitting on your hands. Like, you got to get up. You got to be making some noise. They're going to put on a show. I loved every time that I went to see them. And their playlist, as far as what they play, they're going to play the hits, obviously, but Fonte does a great job as far as an MC of walking you through the Foreign Exchange catalog. Another group that if they had a performance tomorrow, I'm there. Next up, number 6, the legendary Roots Crew. I think it was, New Year's Eve 2019, saw the Roots at the Roxy here in Atlanta. Man, the Roots put on it might have been 2.5 hours, nonstop hits. They only took a pause to bring in the new year, and they sang the Happy New Year song or whatever, and then they got right back to it, man. Black Thought in concert is as dope as you think he is. And his level of breath control and the way that he manipulates his voice is impeccable. I don't know how he does it on a night-to-night basis. Obviously, we see the Roots all the time as they're the house band for Jimmy Fallon on NBC every night. But when they get on their tour runs, go see the Roots. The Roots will never disappoint. And from what I understand from Questlove, they don't rehearse. I guess when you've been doing it this long, you don't really necessarily have to rehearse shows. But man, I love those guys. One of my favorite groups of all time. Definitely worth the money. Definitely worth the money. Number 7, Jay-Z. I saw Jay-Z right after the Blueprint album dropped. Jay-Z puts on a good show. He puts on a good show. Obviously, Jay-Z has hits on hits on hits. You're not going to get a whole bunch of dancers and a whole bunch of theatrics. Jay-Z's walking back and forth. He's going to bring out, Memphis Bleak. He's going to bring out Beanie Siegel. He's going to bring out State Property. And there was a point, particularly that night when I saw Jay-Z, he brought out Dame, man. He brought out Dame Dash, and Dame was up there doing his thing. And as a fan, it's a little sad to see right now at the time of this recording what Jay-Z and Dame are going through as former friends, former business partners, kind of butting of the heads. They've been in court against each other, and, Rockefellers as a label has dissolved. But man, seeing Dame and Jay, sharing the stage together, it brings back great memories. I don't know that that'll ever happen again, but at least I have the memories. But Jay-Z puts on a great show. He puts on a great show. Number 8, the aforementioned Wu-Tang Clan. I think when I saw Wu-Tang again, it was with Nas here in Atlanta. It was at was that Chastain? No, I think it was Lakewood Amphitheater. Wu is, nonstop. When you talk about songs, hits, energy, because all of the members, when you get into the Wu-Tang songs like Cream, when you get into the Wu-Tang songs like Triumph, and then when you get into the solo songs, like from the Purple Tape and any and every hit in between there, man, the Wu they can do it. They literally could do a show just themselves alone. Like, you don't need anybody to warm up the crowd. They've obviously since replaced ODB with Young DB, Old Dirty Bastard's son, who's, high energy guy. And just a lot of fun, man. I thoroughly enjoyed the Wu-Tang concert. One of the things that made the Wu-Tang concert special was that I had my oldest son, Dion, with me. And, he found my music as far as Wu-Tang and Nas. He found it in my car one day. He started playing it. He took my CDs and started playing it. And it was a proud father moment because I didn't have to introduce it to him. He found it on his own and became a fan. Number 9, where did we see? We saw them at Chastain, right? Yeah, Chastain Amphitheater. New Edition. I've seen New Edition at Chastain, and I saw New Edition at Mercedes-Benz. No, I'm sorry, State Farm. Both here in Atlanta. Listen, there might not be a better R&B show than New Edition. And I say that as somebody who hasn't seen a whole bunch of R&B shows, so don't jump down my back. But for my money's worth, New Edition was crazy because you've got the New Edition hits that they made with Bobby Brown, and then you could take them off the stage, and then you could bring Bobby Brown back and let Bobby Brown do his hits. And Bobby Brown, for what it's worth, when Bobby Brown was in his quote unquote prime, Bobby Brown ran music for a good stretch of 2 to 3 years. Everything he touched turned to gold, literally and figuratively. And so you could take Bobby off, and then you could bring in BBD, Belle Biv DeVoe. Belle Biv DeVoe, high energy, you got dancers, you got everything. And then you bring them back and you do all the other New Edition stuff. You can take them off and bring Johnny Gill and let Johnny Gill do his run. And his run and hits the songs, and then bring them back and do the New Edition songs together. And I think when we saw him at State Farm, they closed out with Can You Stand the Rain? And listen, I don't know anybody that's going to close out a crowd better than Can You Stand the Rain? If New Edition is anywhere near you, go see them. I know at the time of this recording, they've had a residency in Vegas. Again, for my money's worth, New Edition, I'm going to see New Edition whenever, wherever. just an incredible show. Last but not least, coming in at number 10, Fonte, Big Pooh, Little Brother. I've seen LB twice, both times here in Atlanta. The first time I saw Little Brother was in 2019 after May the Lord Watch, after that album dropped. And I'll be honest, I didn't know that I was going to see Little Brother because none of us thought that they were ever going to make another album. And for them to make that album and for them to tour that album, and we got a chance to see them before COVID, because I saw them November of 2019. Obviously, the subsequent March, COVID hits, everything gets shut down. And when I tell you that show was crazy. And the thing that I love about it, and Fonte, again, sets the stage. Fonte said, look, like we're here for an hour and a half. You know, he's like, everybody got to be home. We got to go to work tomorrow. So we not going to hold you all night. We're going to get you in and get you out. And he wasn't, while he was being funny when he said it, he was being honest. I mean, like, the Little Brother core fans are working class people who have jobs and got 401ks, and we probably got kids. And so, both times I saw him, the last time I saw him was it last summer? Shout out to King John from Pod and Saved Our Marriage. He came up from Florida. We hung out. We were at we were there, me and my boy Ryan, Beezy, no, was Beezy there? No, Beezy. Be-Easy was there, not Beezy. Be-Easy was there. Chuck the Gambler. Shout out to those guys who came through. And we had a ball. That was a night to remember, man. It was a great time. That was at the little spot in the Underground, downtown ATL. All in all, these artists are some of my favorite artists, obviously. These artists can define my musical taste, you know, again, from Outkast to D'Angelo, Heavy D, Nas, The Foreign Exchange, The Roots, Jay-Z, Wu-Tang, New Edition, and Little Brother. All of them are, you know, some of my favorite acts to listen to. I have everybody's music in my catalog. And it's not music that I've ever stopped listening to. So even a group like Little Brother, if you follow me, you know that every year I do the Spotify most listened to. Little Brother's on the list, and Little Brother haven't put out an album since 2019, a full album, I should say. And they're on my most listened to list because I'm always going to go back to Little Brother. Like I said, I saw this on Threads and I thought it'd be something dope to talk about. You, the listener, hit me up on all social medias and let me know who are 10 artists that, you know, that you've seen perform live, that if you were going to introduce someone to what it is that you like, who are some of the artists that you've seen perform live in concert? Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for me. Thanks again for checking out this edition of the Rap Soul Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. We drop new episodes every Thursday. Be sure to check out the website. The website, the rapsoulpodcast.riverside.com. While you're there, sign up for the newsletter. And when you get the newsletter, you will get information anytime an episode drops. We're not going to spam your email, but it's very important that you subscribe there. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for me. Thanks again for checking out this edition of the Rap Soul Podcast. I am your boy 12 Kyle. I'll catch you guys next time. 5,000. Yeah.
Thank you for listening. This concludes the episode. Be sure to subscribe to the Rap Soul Podcast. You can find the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Follow the podcast on social media. And feel free to continue this discussion on our Reddit page. More importantly, share this podcast with a friend or family member who loves music as much as you do. Until next time, 5,000.